Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, Shlita. Well, we're back after a, I guess, not so brief hiatus due to my travel schedule. We ran our mission in Israel, had to attend a couple of conferences out of state, and just general life getting in the way. But here we are. I think our last episode was February 16th, so a month. I hope you enjoyed the break, and we'll continue where we left off and hopefully take us through Pesach, which will be our next break, unless there's something else that comes up, but life is like that. And I begin this morning on an extremely sad note as we heard the news that Captain Perez, Daniel Shimon ben Harav Daron, Rabbanit Sheli, Hashem Yakum Damo, whom we've been davening for so many months. And Rav Daron was kind enough to speak to our group in Israel. He's a good friend, and we heard the news yesterday that it was confirmed that he was murdered on October 7th. Levaya being held this morning. Complicated situation, and all of Klal Yisrael mourns with the Perez family, and just further underscores the enemy that we are facing. Our answer has to be, aside from the feelings of sadness, despair, anger, but our responsibility is to bring light into the world. And as we're going to say in Purim, La Yehudim Haisa Ora, Ora Zu Torah, the Gemara says. The definition of light, Ora, is Torah. So I ask each and every one of you, for Daniel Shimon ben Rav Daron, learn something extra. Listen to this Devar Torah. Take it upon yourself to listen each day, so that learning in his memory, we will be able to bring more light in the world, to bring an end to this horrible nightmare that we're living through each and every day. Continue to daven for the members of Tzahal, for the Refuah Shlema L'chol Am Yisrael that needs, and of course for the safe return of the remaining hostages. The next chapter is Ha'im b'tzavat tzrichim lahakel o lahachmir. When it comes to the army, do we have to be stringent or lenient? Ki yadua, pa'amim sheish b'halacha mispar deos. It's understood that when it comes to Jewish law, there are always different opinions. Yesh makilin v'yesh machmirin. B'derech klal halacha nifsekes al pi das harov. There are those who are lenient, those who are strict, and generally speaking, we follow the majority. B'shas hadchak somchen al das hamakilin. But however, in a case of great need, we will rely on a lenient opinion. B'hamahadrin mishtadon lahachmer af kedas hamiyot. And those who are extremely scrupulous will make every effort to be stringent, even if it's the minority opinion, so that they, well, to put it in our parlance, that they will cover all the bases. But when it comes to the army, the Israeli army, the Jewish army, what's the position we should take? Should we be lenient or should we be strict? As we've been saying, we find that the Torah warns us that in the camp, in the military camp, we have to guard ourselves from all evil, because it says, when you go out in the camp, it says you have to guard yourself, safeguard from all evil things. And as we have learned previously, there are three main reasons. First of all, the divine presence rests in the Jewish camp. 2, the Satan has the ability in a time of danger to get us into trouble. And therefore we have to be even more careful in times of war, and especially in the army camp, so that we will merit the aid of Hashem and not fall prey to the Satan. And third, army life, military life, can bring down the spiritual level of a soldier, and by observing mitzvos, it can help elevate his spiritual level when he might find weakness during those times. Umineged, on the other hand, Chazal gave certain exemptions to soldiers who were going out to battle, and they were able to have these exemptions until they exited these situations, until they returned, and these are Ve'eluhem. They could bring wood from anywhere they wanted, and it wasn't any question of stealing. If they don't have water to wash before eating bread, they could eat bread without washing netilas yadayim. Hetiru lehem lechol peros demai, hainu peros shachacham mchayv la'asor misafek, v'machaneh patros zachalim mehachiv. There's something in halacha called demai, which chachamim, we say we have to give meiser. We're not sure demai meaning from like what, the word mai, that's a suffix, and we have to give meiser, but this is exempt in the time of war. When it had to make certain boundaries and they needed 2 meals to make the eruv for the camp boundaries, they were exempt from this. They could camp and they could pass through anyone's field and they don't have to worry about trespassing in that sense. And finally, soldiers who are killed are buried in the place where they fell. And this is only when they go out to war. But in times of training, but these are not applicable just in times of training, only in actual war. Rav Herzog, the chief rabbi of Israel, first chief rabbi of Israel, he paskin in Heichel Yitzchak that even when they are just doing regular patrol, not considered a time of war, these 6 things were not permissible. So we could see that we could perhaps point out that these 6 things Chachamim permitted even in a place where there was no question of pikuach nefesh, or not necessarily in a dangerous position to their lives. Because obviously if it was a case of pikuach nefesh, then all the mitzvahs fall away. V'lo rak shisha dvar me'elo, not just these 6 things. Ella, she'ro chachamim she'mechayelim yitztarchu lahakpid al sheishes hadvarim b'tanai hashetach hakashim tigrem lahem achbada gedola. But Chazal saw to it, they said that if they had to look over, for whatever reason, these 6 things, then would it make life a little bit more complicated while they're out in the field in war. And it would create an unnecessary burden. That we're worried that if they are looking for, if they can't go in a certain field, if I can't sit here, if I have to eat this, I have to, maybe it'll cause some danger, and therefore they were exempt. Lamashal, if they have to carry water because they need to wash hands for hamotzi, or if they have to carry the wood because they couldn't take wood from anywhere, then it would be such an unnecessary burden and it could lead to danger. And if we had to every time go to the cemetery, to a specific cemetery to bury a fallen soldier, they might have to carry a body for many, many days. And they wouldn't be able to fight the enemy. And if they had to ask permission every time they needed to set camp somewhere, they needed to get wood, if they had to speak, it would be a tremendous hindrance. So therefore, Chazal, they abrogated these laws and they said, you don't have to ask permission, you could take the wood, etc. And it was for the betterment of the soldiers. But we have to point out, shekayom, that nowadays, nowadays these really don't apply, and we're not lenient. Lamashal, since that we have automobiles, helicopters, think about all the work that the unit 669 has been doing, the search and rescue. When a soldier falls, lo aleinu, and if I'm not mistaken, that Captain Saren Daniel Perez was 592 in this war, which is just a horrible number. But when they have a body, they're able to fly the body or drive the body out. In our instance, by the way, we don't even have his body recovered yet, so that just adds layers and layers to the suffering. And we have no problem bringing water to the soldiers, etc. And since we have communication systems, so they know where they're going to camp, etc., and they can figure these things out without having to violate anyone's property, certainly without their knowledge. Mikol makom, lamadnu ma'yasodas halal ikaron. But nevertheless, we learn a very important lesson here. Mitzad echad, b'dvarim sha'alulam la'akev l'shabesh hasapilas ha'mechamatayis yishli smoch al das ha'mekilim. If there is something that's going to hinder success in war, then we're able to be makel, we could be lenient at times. As our rabbis sought to do in these 6 areas, those 6 specific examples, as we mentioned. Meidach, on the other hand, if there are things that are not going to create confusion or mess up your military operations, then we have to try very best to be machmir, to follow the letter of the law in the camp. Certainly when it's not a time of war, but it's a time of training, that we have to be certainly more careful even than we would be in other times, because we're not worried about messing up any operations. In any event, we are learning again. I mean, we've always been learning, but it's good to be back here in this format. And again, I urge you, please continue to daven for our brave soldiers in the IDF, for those that need refuah shalem, by the return of the hostages. Please learn Torah. Ora zu Torah. Le'ilu Nishmas. Seren Daniel Shimon ben Harav Daron. Hashem Yakum Damo. And may we only share good news going forward as we approach Chag Purim, this year's Purim, which is feeling not so Purimish, but we have to do what we have to do. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you here next time. Have a great day.